What is going on, guys? My name is Taylor Stuber, and I'm here to break down this 8-game NBA slate on Draftkings at PrizePicks.com. If you guys are new here, welcome. If you guys are a returning viewer, welcome back. If you guys haven't done so already, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And let's try to run up the likes. I'm trying to get up to 8 today, so if you guys could really run it up, hit that like button, would be greatly appreciated. Of course, I will be live streaming an hour before lock, like I do every single day. Saturday, Sunday, does not matter. I will be live streaming at 5 p.m. Central Time to go over the latest breaking injury news, as well as letting you guys know what I'm doing and what you guys should be doing when you guys ask me questions. Try to answer as many questions as I possibly can in that hour time frame. If you guys want to know exactly what I'm playing on DraftKings, FanDuel, and PrizePicks every single day, make sure to join my Patreon. That is linked down below in the description, as well as the pinned comment. $25 a month. I think it's a pretty damn good deal, but let's just jump right into this slate. So we will start off with the Miami Heat versus the Washington Wizards. A 208 over under. The Heat are currently 1-point favorites. Victor Oladipo is out. Markieff Morris is still out. You know, quite the shove by Nikola Jokic. Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero are both questionable right now. Hero ended up going through shoot around. Bam Adebayo ended up not. So my interest in this team is highly indicated on who is in and who is out between Adebayo and Tyler Hero, but with this being the first game of the slate, we should get that news well before time. Spoelstra's usually pretty good at that, so we'll probably go over that during the stream. You know, that would open up some value or some better plays like Jimmy Butler when the studs aren't very stacked today. We had a lot of the studs on yesterday and the day before slate. Today, not that many. Jimmy Butler would become one of the better plays if one of Tyler Hero or Bam Adebayo end up sitting, but we'll go over that later. Move over to the Washington Wizards side. Thomas Bryant, Rui Hachimura, Davis Bertans are all out. Daniel Gafford is questionable. Daniel Gafford, weird situation last game. You know, he popped up as a midday questionable after not being on the injury report with a thumb injury. And then he was doubtful, and then he was ruled active, and then he was ruled out shortly after. So Montrezl Harrell in all of the games that Daniel Gafford has missed has played like mid-30s minutes, so he would become a near must-play here despite it being a tougher matchup against the Miami Heat. And Bam Adebayo, I would still go back to the well with him at $6,500. If Daniel Gafford is healthy, I think he's a pretty solid value play at $4,500, and then we're going to get Spencer Dinwiddie back in the lineup for the Washington Wizards today after he sat the second leg of a back-to-back last game, but really not focusing on too much in this game until we get that injury news. Move over to the New Orleans Pelicans versus the Indiana Pacers. A 208 over under. The Pacers are currently 7-point favorites. The Pelicans are going to be without Zion Williamson and Devontae Graham. Devontae Graham missed the last game. Tomas Satoransky ended up starting in his place, played 25 minutes, didn't put up a very good stat line, but 25 minutes for the bare minimum. You could do a lot worse, but it was actually Kyra Lewis coming off the bench. He ended up playing about 23 minutes, scored 33.5 fantasy points last game with no Devontae Graham. So both those guys are viable punt options. I would prefer Kyra Lewis just because he is much more active coming off the bench. He's playing less minutes next to Jonas Valanciunas, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Brandon Ingram, like Tomas Satoransky, who, like, all of his minutes are up. And this is one of the main reasons why I make these videos in the middle of the day. Cole Anthony was just ruled out, so we'll go over that a bit when we get to the Orlando side. But yeah, so Devontae Graham has already been ruled out. So Brandon Ingram, I think, is in a great spot right here. And Josh Hart. Josh Hart is just playing absurd minutes right now, mid to high 30s minutes. So I like him a good bit at $5,100. One of the better, you know, mid-range value plays. So him and Brandon Ingram, the two guys I'm really focusing on the Pelicans, and then Kyra Lewis and Tomas Satoransky, more of pump plays at the bare minimum. Move over to the Indiana Pacers. TJ Warren is out. Chris Duarte is questionable. Chris Duarte returned last game after a 2-game absence and played just 14 minutes, but it was a really weird situation. You know, the starters were getting beat pretty bad by the Charlotte Hornets, so they pulled the entire starting lineup only a couple minutes into the third quarter, and they never came back in. They just ran the backups, and the backups actually led them back into the game, making it a lot closer than it should have been. So, you know, this is a great bounce back spot against the New Orleans Pelicans. They're second in the league in terms of defensive rating, the worst in the league in terms of defensive rating. So, Brogdon, Karis LeVert, I think have pretty high upside in this spot, but tournaments only, wouldn't play these guys in cash games because they are relatively healthy right now. If Chris Duarte does in fact miss this game, we're going to see probably Keelan Martin or Justin Holiday start in his absence. In the 2 games that he missed, Justin Holiday started the first game, played like 32 minutes. Keelan Martin started the second game, played mid-20s minutes in his replacement, but not really interested in either of those guys. Move over to the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Boston Celtics at 207 over-under. The Celtics are currently 10-point favorites. The Thunder, Derek Favors missed. The Thunder have no injuries. Derek Favors missed the last game due to rest, but he should be back. But it doesn't really matter. It looks like Jeremiah Robinson Earl's minutes are on the. They're trending upwards right now, and they should be. He should continue to play mid to high 20s minutes. Not the worst play at $3,400. And then Lucas Stewart, he finally came back down to earth in terms of shooting. Still put up a somewhat solid game for $5,000, but it's the same case as always with the Thunder. If they can stay competitive in these games, Baisley, Lou Dort are probably entirely too cheap. But if the game ends up blowing out, then they're not worth their tags, even at that price tag. So it is a 10-point spread right now. So if you think the game stays close, then I would target maybe a guy like Lucas Stewart. Move over to the Boston Celtics. Jaylen Brown has already been ruled out. Robert Williams is questionable, but he's actually been moved down to doubtful now. So I already went ahead and posted this on the Patreon. If you guys want to tail it in this video, you're going to want to do it as fast as possible because these numbers will move with prize picks. When a lot of the bets are coming in on the over or the under, like a normal sportsbook, they will move the lines pretty drastically. So I'm going to take the over on Al Horford, 31 fantasy points. He is a far superior play when Robert Williams is not active and not out there on the court, and he's the only big out there. So I love Al Horford over 31 fantasy points. And over here on Prize Picks, you get 3 full points for blocks and steals, which is very, very good for Al Horford because he gets those in bunches. So I like Al Horford, the over 31 fantasy points, and I'm going to give away a play in the next game. I believe it's the next game. Yeah, the next game. And so if you guys want to pair those and ride with me, make sure to use code Taylor, TAYLOR, when signing up and depositing for a 100% match bonus up to $100. I know everybody in our community has been playing Prize Picks a ton recently. We're going to continue to do that. So on the Boston Celtics side, without Jaylen Brown, Robert Williams likely out again. Jason Tatum and Dennis Schroeder are going to absolutely run this offense. Tatum, the volume has been there all year. He just was playing very, very inefficiently to begin the year. But as of recent, he has been playing very, very well. Put up 64, nearly 65 fantasy points last game out. We ended up playing him on FanDuel yesterday. He was one of my favorite spin-up options on Draftkings yesterday, so he's finally paying off this price tag, especially without Jaylen Brown. He gets an easy matchup against the Oklahoma City Thunder, and actually, the Thunder have been competing with these teams. This is the second leg of a back-to-back for the Celtics, so I can definitely see this game playing close enough to where they get their full complement of minutes. So I like Jason Tatum quite a bit, Dennis Schroeder, and I think Josh Richardson continues to come off the bench and play around 30 minutes. He's going to continue to be severely overlooked at 3,200. Move over to the Charlotte Hornets versus the Atlanta Hawks at 227.5 over under. The Hawks are currently 6.5 point favorites, which actually that 6.5 seems like a bit much for the Atlanta Hawks. They have not been good this year, and the Hornets have been a bit better recently, especially with how much they have been playing LaMelo Ball. But PJ Washington is out, so that kind of secures the center role for Mason Plumlee. I don't think he's the worst play. They will need his size for a large majority of the time against Clint Capella, who's going to play like 34 minutes in this game. They do like to play small without PJ Washington, but they can't really get away with that against Clint Capella. But LaMelo Ball, his minutes have been on the trajectory, upwards trajectory lately. He had been playing earlier on in the year, like, sometimes they would end up benching him in the fourth quarter when the second unit's playing well, but that's just like not the case anymore. They're playing him like 38, 39 minutes a game right now. So I think that he is in play against the Atlanta Hawks. This game does play into his favor. The Hawks are the worst half-court defense in the entire league, and I think people are scared off of a 10-4 price tag for LaMelo Ball, but I think he deserves it. He has shown the upside for that price plenty of times, especially recently. So I don't mind LaMelo Ball And then Mason Plumlee, really the only other guy that I'm considering. It is worth mentioning that Kelly Oubre and Cody Martin have been heavily eating into Terry Rozier's minutes, so Terry Rozier's role isn't as secure as we once thought it was. Move over to the Atlanta Hawks. DeAndre Hunter and Onyeka Okongwu are both out, so Kevin Huerter is going to continue to start, and he is only $3,800. Don't know how you avoid Kevin Huerter right here. He has started the last 3 games. 2 of the games he played 33 and I mean, he's been starting pretty much all of these games, but he's playing 30 plus minutes in all of them. Oh, Matisse Thybulle is healthy. Okay. Against Orlando, he played 16 minutes, but that was just in the first half. I think he had a hamstring injury that tightened up, and so he ended up not playing in the second half, but he was on pace to play 32 minutes in the full game. So $3,800. Not sure why they haven't adjusted his price. Actually, they have adjusted his price and they lowered it, which makes absolutely no sense. So I love Kevin Huerter here. And then Clint Capella at $7,200. I think he's a pretty safe cash game play. He's going to continue to play around 34 minutes. Gets a good front court matchup against Mason Plumlee and the Charlotte Hornets. And his over-under is still at 32 fantasy points over here on PrizePicks. So if you guys want to pair the over Clint Capella 32 fantasy points with the Al Horford over 31 fantasy points, that is what I'm doing. That's what I've already posted on the Patreon. If you guys want to tail me, again, use that code when signing up. There's a link in the description. These lines will move drastically. So if you are going to tail this, do it sooner rather than later before the numbers start moving. So yeah, I like the over on Al Horford 31 and the over on Clint Capella 32 fantasy points. Move over to the Orlando Magic versus the Milwaukee Bucks. A 215.5 over under. The Bucks are currently 11-point favorites. So we did just get news from the Orlando Magic. We already knew Markelle Fultz, Jonathan Isaac, Etuan Moore, Michael Carter-Williams are going to be out. But a bit of a surprise, Cole Anthony is now ruled out. So I just got that in the middle of me recording this same video. And I was already talking up Jalen Suggs. I had few notes on the Magic because I wasn't really considering anybody here, but I already had notes down that Jalen Suggs already had the second highest usage, the second highest assist percentage on this team, just behind Cole Anthony, but now Cole Anthony is ruled out. So I think Jalen Suggs is going to play, pretty big minutes here. Even if the game ends up blowing out, I could see him playing high 20s minutes. And he should probably lead this team in usage and assist percentage. He's only $3,800. We finally saw him put together a complete game yesterday, and he scored 37.5 fantasy points in 32 minutes. Yeah, I think he might be the best value on the entire slate off the top of my head now, because the values were pretty barren outside of guys like Kevin Huerter, who we just talked about. So love Jalen Suggs today. I'm going to be digging into that deeper after this, and then we'll go over it a bit more extensively in the live stream. But of course, this is a 11-point spread right now, and I'm sure it's going to widen even more with Cole Anthony being out. But yeah, that blowout risk still remains. Move over to the Milwaukee Bucks. Brook Lopez and Dante DiVincenzo are out. I believe I just got news that Rodney Hood is now doubtful. Yeah, Rodney Hood is doubtful, so shouldn't see him. And then Semi Ojeleye is actually questionable to play in this game as well. So there is severe blowout risk in this game. I think Giannis has obvious upside here if this game can stay competitive. Their last game against the Thunder was somewhat competitive as well. And then Chris Middleton, with this being the second leg of a back-to-back and him just now coming off injury and him playing up to 32 minutes last game, I think that they could scale it back a little bit for Middleton here. But I'm really not considering anybody on this Milwaukee Bucks team. Move over to the Memphis Grizzlies versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. A 220 over under. The Timberwolves are currently 2.5-point favorites. The Grizzlies are going to be without D'Anthony Melton, Sam Merrill, and then Dillon Brooks is now doubtful to play in this game. So I don't think that we see Melton or Dillon Brooks today. And so it's been weird because since Dillon Brooks has returned, he kind of supplanted D'Anthony Melton in the starting lineup, and then Melton would play directly behind Dillon Brooks. So now you're missing two of those pieces. But the Grizzlies are a very versatile team. They can start many different players. So more things than not, it only secures Desmond Bane's role. Dillon Brooks being back didn't really affect Desmond Bane. He was going to play about 30 minutes a game regardless, assuming those games were competitive. But now you're taking away a ton of usage with Dillon Brooks and D'Anthony Melton being out, and Desmond Bane would have been out there on the court pretty much at all times with at least one of those players. So I absolutely love Desmond Bane today. And then with those guys out, I do think that it is an increase in Kyle Anderson's minutes. He's a very good play at 4,600. He's a very good per minute producer. And then I think Zaire Williams at $3,100 is an interesting tournament option, pivot off of the maybe more popular Pelicans guys. Unless Zaire Williams does get the start, then he would be very popular, and I'd be much more interested in him as well. Off the Pelicans guys, but I think he should get a boost in minutes without Brooks and D'Anthony Melton. Move over to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Naz Reid is expected to play in this game, so we should see Karl-Anthony Towns' minutes scale back a little bit. You know, he's been playing in the upper range of like 40, 37, 38 minutes. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case now with Naz Reid returning, because they do like playing Naz Reid. So we could definitely see his minutes scale back to like the lower 30s minutes range, which he could absolutely destroy this Memphis team. This Memphis team has the worst defensive rating in the entire league, so obviously a great matchup for Minnesota here. I prefer Anthony Edwards and D'Angelo Russell. Those are two of my favorite plays on the entire slate. And then another good value play in Patrick Beverley at $4,700. His price has risen a bit, but I still think that comparative to how much he's playing and what role he currently has on this team, that $4,700 is actually too cheap for him still. So especially in this matchup against the Grizzlies. So I like Beverley, I like Edwards, and I like D'Angelo Russell from the Timberwolves. Move over to the Utah Jazz versus the Sacramento Kings at 221.5 over under. The Jazz are currently 8-point favorites. The Jazz have no injuries. Rudy Gay actually debuted last game, ended up playing 18 minutes off the bench, was very active, was very good in those minutes. I'm not considering him here, but is a good matchup for them. Really only considering Donovan Mitchell and Jordan Clarkson, but definitely secondary plays. I'm really not focusing on anybody in this game. On the Kings side, they have no injuries either, so healthy. Everybody's priced appropriately. Chimezie Metu, this is the last game that he was promised to start, so maybe they give him some additional run here. They're really trying to figure out what they're going to do at the power forward spot. They're even giving Marvin Bagley minutes in the rotation now again, so he probably ends up playing, you know, mid to high 20s minutes here. Tough matchup, $4,200. I mean, he could pay off his price tag, but I think there's definitely better value plays on the slate. Move over to the last game of the slate, the Philadelphia 76ers versus the Portland Trailblazers. A 217 over under. The Trailblazers are currently 6-point favorites. The Sixers are going to be without Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and Danny Green. Matisse Thybulle was questionable, but like a couple minutes ago during this video, he was ruled in. So I was expecting like another 8-9 man rotation again, but with Matisse Thybulle in, it definitely throws in a wrench to the value plays. So guys like Shake Milton, Niang, I would have been interested in them, but I am no longer with Matisse Thybulle being out. The only guy that I'm really interested in is Tobias Harris, who continues to lead this team in usage since he has returned. Good matchup against the Portland Trailblazers. A lot better matchup than what they've been seeing recently since he has returned. I mean, Denver, Utah, Indiana, Toronto. These are some pretty tough defenses, especially Utah and Denver. So I don't mind Tobias Harris, especially with the decrease in price that he has gotten. And then on the Portland Trailblazers side, they have no injuries. Damian Lillard seems to be completely fine with the abdominal injury, and he has been playing much, much better than he has been than he was to begin the year. So I think Lillard is actually too cheap. He might be my favorite spin-up option at $9,100. I think that is too cheap for him, especially in this matchup against a weak 76ers team. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on today's slate. Obviously, there's going to be much more news coming out throughout the day. I will make sure to update you guys in the Patreon, the Discord, and the live stream. Most important thing is to be a part of that live stream an hour before lock, so at 5 p.m. Central Time. Make sure to be there right here on this YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe so you guys are notified when I do go live. But yeah, I'll be there to answer as many questions as I possibly can. But I appreciate you guys being here. Best of luck tonight, and until next time, peace.